Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another week of sex, more sex, and even more sex on Thursdays with ONIKA. I am ONIKA Henry. I am a clinical sexologist and sex educator, and I want to thank you for joining me again for another episode of Thursdays with ONIKA. So, um, first of all, let me apologize for last week. For those of you who went on YouTube looking for the live, we encountered some technical difficulties. And so we ended up going live on Facebook. So if you want to see last week's episode, you go to my O. Henry Consultancy Services Facebook page and you will find it there. Tonight, I'm told we're going live on both platforms, both Facebook and YouTube. So yeah, I hope that's going well. And I'm going to do a recap of last week's show. So for those who missed it, you get a little bit of a taste of what we discussed. And for those who were there, this is a refresher. And today's a Q&A. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the slides that we looked at that I taught from last week. But if you have pencil and paper ready and you want to write down some comments or questions as I go through the slides so that you can ask them, please go do that now. Take a minute or two, get paper and pencil, so you can jot down your notes and you could write down the questions that you'd like to ask. All right. And we are going to go straight into it just because last week was really packed. I spoke a lot and I cut down the slides. I just kind of took out what I felt were the main points, the main things I wanted you to remember, the main things I wanted you to highlight. But still, I could talk. So let's get straight to it. And I also put out my number for folks who may still be a little shy about writing or asking their questions or making their comments on the live, especially if you have your full government name, as we say, and you don't have an alias. And so if you are still shy about asking what you want to ask, this is my number. Write it down. You can WhatsApp me if you have Signal, if you have, what's the other one? Telegram. You could send me your questions, your comments, your messages there, and I will respond to them. All right. It would be nice if everyone could see them in the chat, but I'll be repeating it. So everyone could benefit from the response and from the answer I give to that. All right. So let's get straight into the recap of last week's show, which was about sexological bodywork and somatic sex education. Hope you're ready. Let's go. All right. So what does a sexological bodyworker or somatic sex educator do? The terms are slightly different. A sexological bodyworker focuses mainly on working through the body. Somatic sex educator does the same thing and will also consider other things like the social, political, religious, economic situation that a person or persons live in and how that will impact their sexual wholeness and wellness, right? So not every sexological body worker is a somatic sex educator, but every somatic sex educator is a sexological body worker. They have to do that training first, and then they do additional training. All right, let's go. So we spoke about my initial studies, like where did I start off in this journey to become a sexologist? And I shared with you that my first qualifications in sexuality is a Master's of Education. And then after that, what I did was a certifying course to become a sex coach. And we spoke about what these two trainings, these two skill sets gave to me. So the first skill set that came from those two different sets of training. Let's look at what the MED gave me, the Masters of Education. With an MED, I can do consultations. I do needs assessment for organizations. So I could do an investigation of an organization, of an NGO, etc., whatever the organization is, and determine, okay, this is a kind of interventions when it comes to your staff's wholeness and wellness that you should implement. So I can do a needs assessment and suggest a course of action. I can design, develop, and implement lesson plans, workshops, and curricula. And of course, I can teach. Ooh, okay. Apologies, the lighting seems to be misbehaving tonight. So if things just go dark all of a sudden, it's because the light above my head is playing with us tonight. Right. I can teach sexuality education at all levels, preschool to seniors through the tertiary level. I can teach sexuality education to every age and stage, if you want to call it that. And then what I can also do is advise policymakers on these issues: HIV and AIDS, adolescent pregnancies, and adolescent sexual health generally, sexual orientation, gender, and I can do all of those and more from a multicultural perspective, considering the cultural background, the cultural climate that these issues are being discussed in. Now, what I didn't mention last week is the circles of sexuality, which is what my sex education is based on. We use these topics to create lesson plans, to create the curriculum. And as you can see here, there are 5 circles. And if you look at these circles carefully, you recognize that only one circle actually deals with sexual intercourse, with sexual behavior. So I always like to remind people that sexuality is way, way more than genital behavior. All right, so I'm just going to pause so you can take a look at this diagram. Sensuality, intimacy, sexual identity, sexual health and reproduction, and sexualization. And we take out from each of these circles what's appropriate for every age and stage. All right? And you can tell, well, I'm assuming you can tell, that if we had this kind of information when we were going through our educational life or educational journey, we might probably have way less sexual issues because you would be prepared going through each stage to manage these different aspects of your sexuality. But with the Masters of Education, I could not do the following: address the needs of individuals or couples in terms of their personal and interpersonal challenges with their sexual functions or behavior. So I could not address issues like difficulty with orgasm. I couldn't give the technique, the step-by-step instructions in terms of what persons could do. I couldn't help with negotiating sexual needs. I couldn't help with erectile problems. So I felt that I really needed to add more skills and add more information so that I could really help people beyond just giving them limited information, because that's what the degree enabled me to do. I could give information. And I could not give specific suggestions or ways of resolving unsatisfying sex or healing from trauma, not in any real impactful way. And so, because of that, I decided to do the certified sex coaching training. And as a CSC, certified sex coach, this is what I could now do. I could practice clinical sexology, which means I could assess and address sexual dysfunctions and issues using talk-based approaches. And this is the sex coaching model that I was taught to use. I didn't share this with you last week, but I thought it would be helpful this week. I use the MEEBS model designed by Dr. Patty Britton. And so when you come to me as a sex coaching client, I will be assessing you based on the mental or the mind, the mental aspect of your sexuality, your thoughts, your beliefs, thinking patterns, the way you are judging yourself, what you think are the shoulds and shouldn'ts when it comes to sex and sexuality. The emotions. Are you carrying any emotional baggage? Your ability to trust and let go. Um, your capacity for intimacy. I would also be assessing body. So pain, discomfort, numbness, and your actual skills in bed with another person or by yourself. And of course, energy is the center of all of this. What kind of well, first of all, do you have enough energy to engage in sexual activity, and therefore might health be an issue here? And energy here also speaks about like a vibe, your attitude, your sense of being positive, and embracing curiosity when it comes to your sexual health and wellness. And of course, the spiritual aspect of sex. And nothing to do with religion, because I see everybody from any religious walk of life. And so when we are assessing the spiritual aspect of your sexuality, it's more about how do you see sex as a gift from Creator? How do you see sex as something that's more than just physical? How is it serving you overall in your life? How might it impact a sense of feeling connected more deeply to yourself, to your partner, or for some people to what they consider to be Creator, God, etc. So lots of new and wonderful skills I got when I did the certification in sex coaching. But there was still a but. The outcomes for working with folks using just a talk based approach I found was slower than I would like. And of course, if people find that they're taking long to get to their goals, it's more difficult to be disciplined about it and stick with it. I did have some success, but I felt that I could do more. And so um, I ended up doing more, particularly because of this challenge here. So I had a challenge dealing with clients who had vaginismus, and I explained what vaginismus was. I'll just give you a visual explanation this time. So with vaginismus, this is where the woman's vaginal muscles they shut down, they tighten to such a degree that sometimes, as you see in the first photograph here, penetration may not be possible at all. And the second case, if penetration is at all possible, it's very uncomfortable, it's very tight, and there's pain for both partners. And in this case, it is not just the woman who is suffering or who is being harmed physically. Sometimes the man, especially if he is able to penetrate, he finds that he may be bruised. So the male, the penetrating partner, may also be injured. So outside of the frustration, the emotional turmoil, there's also the physical impact that this has on the bodies involved. And so, in looking for other resources to deal with vaginismus, I decided, listen, I would like to work more directly through and with the body. After all, the body is the actual tool for sex. And I felt it would bring greater and faster improvement in sexual health outcomes for my clients. And so, while doing a search for tools that I could use for body based work, I discovered sexological bodywork and somatic sex education. So, those terms, sexological bodywork and somatic sex education, refer to what can be broadly understood as or defined as body based sex education. And this type of training, this way of working with clients, it goes beyond talk. And so it combines interpersonal neurobiology, how your nervous system works, not just within you, but how it works when you are in the presence of another body in very close contact, as happens with sex. So it combines that knowledge and that information with understanding anatomy, understanding physiology. It combines it also with touch skills, learning how to touch for healing and for education, and practices to empower voice and choice. Are you able to say and ask for what you want? And able, not just in terms of being able to say the words, but having the confidence, having the vocabulary, and feeling comfortable and settled in your body when you ask for what you want or say what you don't want, or when you're able to negotiate the kind of sexual experience you would want to have with a partner. Now, SB, Sexological Bodywork, SSE, Somatic Sex Education, they are grounded in the science of neuroplasticity and the polyvagal theory. I'm just going to briefly share what those are. I'm not going to go through the whole long explanation like I did last week. Basically, what I'm saying is, in the field, we use this scientific information, this scientific knowledge to create the tools, to create the techniques that are needed in order to bring about sexual wholeness and wellness. So when we say neuroplasticity, we are talking about the fact that the brain is able to change and adapt. And it's able to change and adapt through these different experiences. So trauma changes the brain, and the brain may adapt sometimes in not helpful ways to protect the person from experiencing further trauma. Stress, social interactions, the way we relate to others and how often we interact with others in particular kinds of ways. Meditation, certain emotional responses. So if we're always angry, or we find that we're very hyper vigilant state, we are having lots of anxiety, that also changes the way the brain works. How we learn, paying attention, so that's like mindfulness, exercise, and new experiences. And I've shared all of those because SB and SSE, Sexological Bodywork and Somatic Sex Education, have tools, exercises, techniques that deal with or address all of these issues. And so because we know and understand how the brain works and how that impacts the body, we are able to more successfully bring people to a place of alignment where the mind, the heart, and the body are on the same page and working together. And polyvagal theory, which is the other theory that these modalities are based on, this is about learning to befriend and resource your nervous system. So if you look at this diagram, it's showing regulated at the top and dysregulated and immobilized, meaning not going anywhere, not moving, very slow, very lethargic. Your nervous system moves between those states. And so we understand how the nervous system works, and we're able to give you tools and techniques again in order to regulate your nervous system, tools and techniques to upregulate it. So if you want to be energized so that you can do a task, if you want to be motivated, there are specific ways of breathing, of moving, etc., that get your nervous system to the point where you have the energy and you're able to move, where more neurons are firing in your brain and things are happening. Sometimes, if that firing and if that excitement gets too much, we're in a state of dysregulation and it's fight and flight. And sometimes that is a trigger that happens from trauma. And so, once again, tools that help folks move from that dysregulated fight and flight, understanding that pattern and learning how to move through that pattern and get back to regulated. And then you can go through a period where you want to down-regulate, especially if you're coming from an upregulated or dysregulated, mobilizing fight and flight, and you want to calm and you want to be very relaxed. You want to be in a state of rest. So not normal, regular going about my day doing things, but you want to get even slower, get even more calm, and perhaps even for some persons in a trance-like state. Once again, we have tools for that. And then, of course, you can have the other extreme where that is you are so calm or too down regulated that you can be dysregulated in your down regulation, where this is not helpful, this is not normal, and you're experiencing numbness. You are disconnected. You are simply immobilized. You're not moving, and you're collapsed, basically. And so, tools and techniques to help you manage how your nervous system is working. Right. We are also a trauma-informed practice. So what does it mean for a practice to be trauma-informed? It means when we are trained, we recognize that trauma is very pervasive, it's very common. And so we do not use practices and we do not use services that may inadvertently re-traumatize somebody. So there are specific ways we will not talk to somebody. There are specific ways we will not ask clients, specific things we will not ask clients to do, because we are leaving room for the possibility that this person in front of us has experienced some level of trauma. And so we don't want to create any situation where they are triggered in our space, and that we have to find a way to get their nervous system regulated if they become dysregulated. So based on this training, I got some new skills and new tools. And these tools and these skills are practices that help me to help you help person to regulate the biochemical and physiological components of emotions and moods. So, if you need to get into a space out of anxiety and get into calm, get into a sense of openness and curiosity, we have techniques for helping you move through those moods to get to a place where you want to get to in order to engage in sexual activity that is safe and healthy for you. Some of these tools include coaching and breath, movement. And under movement, I want you to think about what you might observe in, for example, yoga practices, different movement, different poses, meditation practices, body awareness exercises and tools, and boundary setting, communication skills, of course, anatomy and physiology knowledge, teaching you about your body parts and what they do and how you can work with them, sensate focus, learning how to touch your partner's body, how to negotiate that touch, focusing not on what's going through your mind, but on the sensations that you are feeling and experiencing and how they may change depending on the kind of touch that you're receiving or the kind of touch that you're giving. Massage techniques, once again, is a different form of touch, etc. Lots of other tools that I can't go into here tonight. But you get an idea, you get a sense of what I now have added to my toolbox in addition to the talk-based strategies and therapies. All right, let me just pause for a quick. Oh, thank you, Karen. Nice hairstyle. Would you believe this was a quick? The hair wasn't cooperating tonight. So this is a last minute. Okay, I'm just going to put it in one, and that's what's we're going to have to work with. The hair just wasn't cooperating. But thanks for the comment, Karen. All right. And I like to say that we are extra special in our field. And we are extra special because unique in our profession, as far as I am aware, as far as I know, is that we are trained to do touch for education, for healing, and for pleasure. So that combination of using touch for those three things is something that you will not, or that you'll very rarely see anywhere else. I don't know of anywhere else or any other modality that uses touch in these ways. All three. All right. This is the part of our work that makes it edgy, that makes it feel controversial, working with genitals. And I spoke last week about other professionals, other healthcare professionals in particular, who also work with the genitals. And this is why we work with the genitals. There are some muscles, there are some tissues, like the pelvic floor muscles, that are better accessed internally. Now, you can't touch the body on the outside in that area, in the pelvic area, and get to those muscles or get to those tissues in order to do any kind of healing or manipulative work. Right, so you do have to go through the genital area in order to be able to access those muscles and do the kind of manipulation, kind of touch, or the kind of massage that needs to be done for tissue in there that may be damaged or that may be numb, etc. Right. Long quote, just because I like this quote, because I think it really sums up how we feel about including genital work and genital touch in what we do. So other body-based modalities leave out the genitals, and in this sense, they have become disembodied. It's not connected, you're not treating everything. Those of us in the somatic sexology field often refer to these modalities as the donut therapy, since their therapeutic approach has focused on everything else about the person all over, right? But not their genitals. The genitals, your sexuality, your sensuality, and desire, therefore, are left invisible, they're left unattended. Yet, this part of our body, our genitals, our sexuality, our sensuality, and desire, they are an essential part of who we are, it's an essential part of our humanity. It is what we consider to be your life force energy, right? So, working with the genitals, while some may say this is not necessary, I don't really need this for healing, perhaps, maybe, but you are certainly not accessing the gift of working with that energy. You're certainly not accessing other healing that can come from incorporating all of you in a very holistic approach. And we spoke about who I work with, the types of clients that I usually see, that I see. So I work with Persons who have sexual difficulties or dysfunction, so the erectile dysfunction, orgasm difficulties, persons recovering from trauma, which I just said. Persons who need to learn embodied communication, including consent and boundary setting. Persons who are dissatisfied with talk therapy, so the talk therapy that you may get from a psychologist or psychiatrist. And persons who are dissatisfied with what we call clinical touch, like the touch you would receive from a physiotherapist or a chiropractor or osteopath, because these professionals will deal with and help heal your pain, but though their pain may be cured, there's still an inability to access pleasure in the body. And that's where we come in. And so you actually find that some persons who are sexological body workers or somatic sex educators have a foundation or a background in some kind of body work already. So there are physiotherapists who then went on and studied somatic sex education. There are doctors, there are gynecologists, there are therapists, psychologists, etc., who then went and added somatic sex education to their skill set because they recognized that they needed to go beyond the talk or they needed to go beyond just the clinical touch that addresses pain. All right. So those folks do exist. And I also shared with you just some visuals so that you get an understanding of what to expect when you do come or if you do come to see me, or what working with my clients look like when I'm using a sexological body work approach or somatic sex education. And so in this picture, you are seeing this practitioner explaining anatomy and physiology to a client, and we use models to do that. I actually have one in my office which I shared with you last week, and I'll bring it back. And I have different kinds of these, meaning they have different shaped lips. Right. This is the my one of my vulva puppets. And so how this has been useful to me is for a client to be able to identify like where on her body she might be experiencing pain, where's the numbness, and she can explain it to me using this puppet. Right. It's one of the uses for that puppet. And if you notice in that picture, if you look carefully, you'll see on the bed there's also um, right pictures of the male genitalia. Notice as well, this client is now on lying down on the massage table and hands are gloved. So there are safety protocols in place to make sure that we are not spreading any infections. And so there are standards of practice that look very much like a clinical space as well. Now, and especially in COVID times, if this picture were updated, there would be the mask on, the thermometer to take temperature before you come in, the hand sanitizers, etc. The full works. And this is something that people don't know that we work with, and many people wouldn't expect or think that we work with, and this is scar tissue remediation. So if you notice in this picture, there is a vertical scar going up this person's tummy, and we are taught the skills of massaging that scar using different strokes, using the warmth of our hands and using castor oil in order to soften that scar and to bring back sensation and feeling in that area. And so this means that we would work with folks who don't have any kind of sexual issue at all, but they may have surgical scars that are interfering with their movement, that's interfering with their ability to feel sensation. Um, and that may actually still be painful. I did have one client who she had a C-section 2 years ago and was still experiencing some pain in that area. By the time she left my office an hour later, much less pain. And I mean, she's pressing and touching. It's like, what did you do? It doesn't even feel like the same, right? So softening the tissue that has hardened below in that area, addressing scar tissue. That's something that we're also taught to do. Because sometimes these scars can interfere with your comfort during sexual interactions. But clearly, if it isn't, and you still want the scar addressed and healed in a particular kind of way, you can come see me for scar tissue remediation. All right. So let me pause here and see if there's anything coming in. Nope, not yet. All right, good. Moving on. Right. And then, of course, I identified who I don't work with. So for persons who are looking for stress relief through sexual release, that's not a service that I provide. Persons looking for sex work services or sexual entertainment, that's not something that I do. And I do not do walk-in and same-day requests. Just doesn't work like that. I also shared with you last week one case study and examples of action plans for clients with specific issues. And I chose to share this particular case study because this is an example of someone who came in with vaginismus, and that was one of my most challenging situations or dysfunctions to work with. So female, 29, survivor of sexual trauma. This is the process this person's going to go through when they're working with me. So there's the inquiry form that you fill out, a 15-minute consultation after that inquiry form, a thorough intake form that gives me your sexual history, a somatic assessment, so non-touch body-based exercise and activity, so I get a sense of how aware you are, how deeply connected you are to your body. All right, look at your movement, figure out if you are able to sense your reactions and your responses to particular scenarios, to particular emotions, etc. And then after I have looked through your history form, after I have done the somatic assessment, then I will design and discuss with you an action plan. I really like this part of the work because, or the opportunity that this gives for me to actually negotiate with a client. I present this action plan and it's something that we can work on together. Clients can say, okay, could we start with this first? I'm not comfortable with this exercise. Could we change this? So very much a collaborative kind of approach. Started practicing voice and choice exercises. And then next thing I would do, or next exercise would be consent and boundary setting exercises. Then we get to breath work and touch fully clothed for unwinding trauma that's stored in the body. Pleasure mapping, so mapping every other place around the body and not the genitals. Then we get to genital mapping. Then we do the full body mapping, so we're incorporating the rest of the body with the genitals. And then, oh, sorry, I kind of jumped ahead there. So let me go back a little bit. And I jumped ahead again. Right. And I wanted to stop here and just let it sink in how many steps this client went through before we even got to the genital mapping, before we even got to touch. One of the things that is very important for us to do is to make sure that our clients are in full consent, that they are not simply going along with what I'm suggesting because, that dynamic with who has power and who doesn't in a situation where you have expert and client, where you have practitioner and client. And what happens in those power dynamic situations is that clients or patients, they tolerate a lot. They don't say what's on their mind. They don't say what they feel. And they may end up not getting treated well or satisfactorily because the practitioner or the healthcare provider isn't aware that something is missing, that there are gaps in their treatment, and that there are other approaches that may be more helpful because the client isn't speaking up. And so all those exercises that went before with power, we're talking about choice and boundary setting and giving clients a voice is to make sure that the work is collaborative and that they feel free and comfortable to let us know if something isn't working well and say what they may want to try differently. And we discuss it and we work it out, right? I also pointed out that we have a code of ethics. So even though this is not a regulated field in the sense that, let's say, medicine is regulated or law is regulated or other quote unquote more established professions, the code of ethics does exist within the community because we do want to make sure that the work that we do serves our clients and serves people well. And I'm just going to quickly go back to just one or two websites to share with you examples of what that code of ethics look like or where you can find it if it's something that you're interested in. More than one organization would have their code of ethics, and it's international. Some ethics are values based, and some are rules-based. In other words, some may say, okay, these are the rules that you follow. If you don't follow these rules, there are consequences for that. Other organizations will say, like, these are the principles, these are the outcomes that we want, these are the values that will guide how you put in place your own specific rules for your practice. All right. So depending on the leadership for that particular organization, you may find some are more values based and some are more rules based. And then I share with you some action plans and proposals. So I'm going to stop here and pause a little bit. Let's see if anybody has any questions, or if you've identified any slides you'd like me to go back to, I can do that. And then I will move on to sharing with you those websites and those web links, and we will recap and a description of an action plan for 2 types of clients. So let me pause here and give people a chance to ask questions or simply make comments. You may not have a question to ask, you may have a comment. I'm also going to check my phone, see if anybody sent anything in as yet. For those of you who are shy and still don't feel very comfortable, making known what they would want to find out. So I'm going to check my phone. I'm going to leave it here, see if anything pops up. All right. Nothing so far. Okay, good. I hope that means that people are understanding everything that's being shared and nothing is confusing. All right. So let us go to take a look at that website that has the code of ethics. Right. So this is oops, I do here. Right. So this is the Association of Certified Sexological Bodyworkers. This one is the US based organization. And you will notice here that they identify, I think it's in orange. Yes, is that orange? It looks like orange to me. They identify other organizations around the world, international schools that also have a code of ethics, right? And so when this video goes up, I would put the links in the description so that you can go check them out if it's something you're curious about, to know what kind of ethics guide this touch-based, controversial, edgy kind of work. So there is this, and then let's see. Right. So integrity, evolution, diversity, etc. So this is one. And then for this one, right, this is the Canadian-based Somatic Sex Education Association and their code of ethics. What I like about what they have on their webpage is that they actually have a client checklist. So you can look at this list and you will have an idea of whether or not this kind of work is something that you are ready for. Are you emotionally prepared for this work? Are you physically prepared, meaning did you just have surgery and therefore you should not be doing a specific kind of touch work? Do you still need to heal? Are you mentally ready? Right. And so this is a pretty good guide for persons who are considering going to a somatic sex educator or a sexological body worker to take a look at these questions, to know whether or not they are prepared and ready for this journey. It can be a very emotional journey. It can be very life transforming. And it takes work to go from one level of awareness, one level of skill or lack of skill to where you want to be when it comes to your sexual wholeness and wellness. It may mean unpacking some very uncomfortable things. It may mean addressing how your family history, how religion has impacted you, and how could you unwind that? How could you let that go? So these questions are a really good guide for persons to get a sense of whether this is a journey that they feel ready to take on. Right? All right. Let's see. Okay. And then let's see. All right. So I'm going to share with you. Let's see. Make sure that you can see that. Are you seeing that? Oh, lovely. So I'm going to share with you 2 examples of action plans, including the process that I took these clients through for persons who came to see me. So let's take a look at those. All right, come on up, come on up. All right, now I use this template because I want folks to think of those techniques and tools and exercises that I describe as a menu of options, a menu of things that will be nourishing to you, that will be healing to you as you move along your journey. And you don't have to take everything on the menu. You don't have to take everything that's on the plate. You take what you feel you need. You take what you feel is appropriate for this stage of growth that you're at. All right. So let's take a look at these action plans. Right. So I did say that the journey starts in a particular kind of way. The inquiry and the 15-minute consultation, the thorough intake form, somatic assessment. We design and discuss an action plan and a proposal. And let's go a little bit deeper into each of these. So the inquiry, we do the inquiry because, hey, I need to know that we're a good fit. Tell me the issues you're having, tell me the challenges you're having, and let me see if I'm the right professional. It may be that I actually have to refer you to a couples counselor. I may have to refer you to a urologist first to make sure there's not a physical issue before you come to fix a problem that you think is one of technique. And one that has to do with your mental health and your emotional state. All right. So, am I the right professional for you? Right. So let's make sure you're not spending your money, and not getting what you need. And then, of course, we are doing the intake form, a thorough intake form. So I need to know your health history and particularly your sexual health history. So we go through that, and then I do the body-based or the somatic assessment, the exercises, the breath work, the movement, the different exercises. Some of them are maybe like meditation guides, etc. So that I get a chance of how well do you understand your body, how connected you are to your body, and perhaps discover places that are uncomfortable for you, even places that may be painful for you that you may not even realize were painful until we went through this exercise. And then after all of that, we design and discuss the action plan. All right. So every single client who comes to me goes through this process. So this is where the journey starts for everyone. So let's look at an example from one client. This is a gentleman. He came looking to heal erectile dysfunction. That is the main issue. But there were some other goals and intentions that we discussed and discovered as we're going through the intake form as I'm asking him questions. So he wants to have more confidence overall. So body image is something we have to work on. He wanted to undo shame from the past and he wanted to connect to his body in a deeper way. And he wanted to be a really great sex partner. He wanted to have more to contribute to the experience with his partner. So he went through the journey that we just discussed, the intake form, the consultation, etc. Decided, hey, okay, this is a good fit. This is something that I can help this person with. And I put together the proposal, of course, which I discussed with him. So this is part one of the proposal. All right, we are going to commit to 10 sessions, meeting once a week. So that's a 10-week process. And at every session, this is how we will start. Check in. And a check in really is how you're going, and an exercise for you to leave the outside world outside. So everything else outside of the office, outside of this time, does not spill over and interfere with the work. So we do a check-in to create that container, and then we do an intention setting. What is its specific intention for our work today? And then the second part of the proposal, notice I said proposal because there's room for negotiation, is this is an action plan or a list of menu items that I am suggesting to this gentleman, and it is in order of priority. Now, of course, we may start to do this work and realize, okay, this may be too early for this. Let's put this later down in the menu and let's bring something else up. So, as you can see on this list, there is assessment of proprioception and interoception. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about what that means. But just take some time and scan this menu, and you'll notice that at the very beginning, we are talking about consent and boundaries, getting in touch with their body, the person's body, the basics of touch, working on body image, a bossy massage. In fact, if you do a Google on bossy massage, you will find an example of a bossy massage on YouTube by Dr. Betty Martin, who created this technique. And it's a massage, a type of touch that is fully clothed, a mindful solo pleasure practice, full body pleasure mapping, no genitals. And for each of those points, that might actually be 2 or 3 sessions. So don't assume that each bullet point is just one session. All right. Um, and then there's a touch palette, playing with sensation. So that might be a nice basket with all kinds of goodies and toys in there. Toys. When I say toys, no, folks, not sex toys. I mean things like scarves of different material. So there might be fur things, there might be satin things in there might be squeaky toys. Just a whole lot of objects that would allow for experiencing many different kinds of sensations. And then later on, we're looking at the genital pleasure mapping, integration of breath, integration of movement, integration of sound, and presence and touch. All right. And so that breath and that movement and that sound and touch are, once again, specific ways of breathing that upregulate or downregulate. Remember, we spoke about polyvagal theory and regulating the nervous system. That is what this is referring to here when we talk about integration of breath, for doing specific things and moving energy through the body and staying present with your sensation. Different ways of moving the body that feel comfortable, that are pleasurable, the use of sound, and of course, learning to be in the moment and follow your pleasure and not be in your head thinking of all kinds of things and spectating on your quote unquote your performance. Right. So let's look a little bit deeper at proprioception and interoception, really big words. But they have simple meaning. So proprioception, this is a sense that lets us perceive the location, the movement, and action of the body parts, right? And so, an example of proprioception is your ability to walk without having to look at your feet to guide your feet. You don't have to look at your feet to walk because you already have a sense of where they are and how they're moving, right? It's also an example. Another example is being able to close your eyes and touch your nose because you know where your nose is. You have an internal sense or a sense of where it's located on your face. So you don't have to go in front of the mirror and touch your nose. You know where it is. Right? So that sense of being able to perceive the action of your body parts, the movement of your body parts, the location of your body parts in space. Yes. And of course, this is one way of helping somebody be very aware of their body and therefore have more choice and more control in what they can do with these body parts. So there are specific exercises that we do for that, right? And then interoception. And this is a perception of sensations from inside the body. So now you are tracking your internal sensations. So perceiving physical sensations like your heart rate or your heartbeat, your how fast you're breathing, so your respiration rate, and being able to perhaps track where your digestion may be, like where's the food right now, maybe. Is it still in your stomach? Do you have a sense of fullness there? Does it feel, all right, just half empty? I probably need to eat another 2 hours, right? As well as understanding what is happening in your body in terms of what is happening with your nervous system because you're experiencing certain emotions. So I'm anxious. When I'm anxious, I can feel my fingers tingling. When I'm anxious, I am feeling butterflies in my stomach. So it feels as if air is moving in a particular direction. So being able to track what's happening inside of your body and giving you the words and vocabulary to describe it. So that's interoception. And we have exercises for that. Gosh, aren't we marvelous? We are marvelous. All right. So that was an example for this particular client, Joseph D, client one. And I am going to pause again. Let's see if there are any comments and questions. Folks, you're really quiet tonight. Am I talking too much? Talking too much? But let me pause just for a few seconds and see if anything is coming up for anyone around what I've shared so far, and around that action plan and how I work with folks. I find Jason quiet tonight. They usually have some kind of question or comment or some joke, but even Jason is quiet tonight, and that's okay. I am comfortable with silence. All right. Nothing. Okay. Well, let's go to the second example, the second client. And this client actually, right, we call her Natalie, Natalie G. Natalie actually doesn't really have a sexual dysfunction or a sexual issue. And I really wanted to share this particular action plan just so that folks know. I didn't talk about this last week, but just so that folks know that your goal or your intention may simply be, I want to enhance the sexual experience. I want my interaction with my partner to be better. I want it to be deeper, to be more exciting. I want it to be something that I look forward to. And so I can also be of service to people who are looking for that kind of work. So when we take a look at Natalie here, let's look at Natalie's goals and intentions. She wants to be able to speak up about what she wants and what she doesn't want. So she maybe has a history of being very shy, especially around sexuality and communicating about things that are sexual. She wants to feel empowered in her body, be able to feel that she has control over this body, that she can do what she would want to do, but she imagined she would like to do, or maybe what she's seen on TV or some movie. But she would like to be able to do that as well. Um, she wants to practice noticing what's happening in her body and to be able to read her body. So you see those exercises in proprioception and interoception, they would be excellent for Natalie. Another goal she has here is she wants to be open to being present in pleasure and finding more pleasure. And usually people who come with this kind of goal, they would say they had this very one exciting experience that's just stuck in their mind, and they wish they could repeat it, with some lover in the past who is no longer, accessible to them, or, who they're not together with, but they always remember this moment. And so they have a sense that there is a potential to have really, really good experiences that feel um, empowering, that feel like after you've had these experiences, you feel you're really in a good mood, you feel more creative, you feel more openness, more open mindedness. And so usually they could pinpoint a particular experience or one or two experiences, and they have a sense, there's more to this than what I'm experiencing now. And the fourth goal that Natalie has here is being able to be aware and be very clear and perhaps state what her boundaries are, and to be able to communicate those clearly and to communicate them well. So, what did my proposal for Natalie look like? Somebody who doesn't really have a sexual issue or sexual dysfunction. So, you can see here that she did not have, or I did not propose as many sessions for Natalie, because we're not starting from a space of, or a place of having to heal dysfunction. So I have suggestion here of 5 sessions, of 1 session per week, and then after the 5 weeks, Natalie will say, "Well, I think I've gotten I got what I want. I'm ready to move on, or I think I want some more. Let's book some other sessions to do some other kind of work." And as I did with the last client, we checking in for every session and setting intention. And then the second part of the proposal, we have here wheel of consent, because she's very concerned about being able to practice her boundaries and communicate her boundaries, knowing when it's a hard no, knowing when it's a maybe that needs to be discussed, and knowing when it's an enthusiastic yes, and being able to communicate that. Learning the basics of touch. And we use, of course, the bossy massage to give her that practice and asking for what she wants and checking in with her body first to see what her body wants, and therefore she knows this is what she needs and what she wants. Like I said, proprioception and interoception is on this menu of things to do with Natalie. Giving her home play in which she is doing her own solo practice and getting to know her body in her own time without the interference of her partner, just being able to focus very deeply on learning herself. body image exercises, and an introduction. I think I didn't finish this. This looks like I have something incomplete here. But anyway, body image exercises and probably an introduction to mirror work. I think that's what I was going to write here. So mirror work is a particular kind of activity that we use with clients who have challenges with body image. Full body pleasure mapping, so no genitals, but we're doing that together with the bossy massage. So once again, she's in full control of asking for what she wants, building a touch palette and playing with sensations, genital image exercise, and an introduction to genital mapping. I think that introduction was supposed to go on the next line. And then this would take care of the 5 weeks. Then we would ask, all right, so what next? Where else may you want to go? All right. And just reassess where you've reached, let's reassess what you've accomplished. And then we may create another action plan to move forward. Right. So cool. All right, people. So that takes us to the end of the recap from last week. And I have time for questions. I have time for comments. I'm going to check my WhatsApp and see if anybody has sent anything. Let's see. Okay, not seeing anything on WhatsApp as yet. Not seeing any comments here. Let's check my other app. Signal and then Telegram. Oops. Okay. So no questions tonight? No comments? And if not, I guess we will have an early end tonight. Let's see. Questions, comments. Going back to my WhatsApp again, see what's here. And let me go back. I'll go back to my contact number just in case folks join late and they missed it. So here we are. If you want to send me anything now before we close off. Cool. All right. Let's see. Any questions? No questions, no comments. All right. So if none, I'm going to assume right now that you are satisfied, that there's no more curiosity or any unanswered questions, any gaps in your thinking about what I do and how I work with clients, especially when I incorporate sexological bodywork and somatic sex education. And so if not, I'm going to bring this to an end tonight. All right, folks? So thank you once again for joining me from wherever in the world you've joined me. So have the good rest of your night, rest of your afternoon, rest of your morning, depending on when you're looking at this. And feel free to reach out to me at that number with your comments and questions. They may come after. And take care, beautiful people. Bye bye.